सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै
May we be protected and nourished. May we work together with great strength. May our study be fruitful and enlightening. Let there be no quarrels among us. Om, peace, peace, peace. Namaskar. Welcome to the Interfaith University's introductory online study program in Practical Vedanta. I'm Dr. Patrick Horn, an initiated disciple in the spiritual lineage founded by Swami Vivekananda. This 10-part course explores the global history, core concepts, key texts, essential practices, and influential personalities of this ancient sacred philosophy. The topic for this session is processes and practices, duty, and action. You will learn about how dharma, the moral law, and karma, the doctrine of cause and effect, impacts one's life and spiritual journey, including the difficulties of reincarnation. Swami Vivekananda said, "Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free." This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. We take in all that has been in the past, enjoy the light of the present, and open every window of the heart for all that will come in the future. When Swami Vivekananda says work, he means karma, which is a Sanskrit term derived from the root which means to do or to make, to build or perform. This word is related to the Latin word creo, which means birth or growth or choice. When the word karma appears in the Vedas and the Upanishads, it has different meanings depending on context. For example, the word karma sometimes means any action, any word or thought or deed, either conscious or unconscious or subconscious. For example, all the work that is done by our cells and our organs and our automatic breathing and our blinking. The word karma could also mean ritual action, which is ceremonies and devotional practices performed as part of religious duty and spiritual worship. Sometimes the word karma refers to moral action, those ethical or charitable activities, and likewise those erroneous behaviors or vices. Karma sometimes refers to the accumulated results of past actions and decisions that shape current circumstances and experiences. Sometimes it refers to future effects, positive and negative outcomes of current actions and decisions. Occasionally, it refers to the merit or demerit accumulated from good deeds and bad deeds that can be passed from lifetime to lifetime or transferred among people. For example, the responsibility that a guru takes for a disciple's karma. The basic idea is that actions have consequences, and individuals are responsible in this lifetime and the next for their actions and outcomes. But because the term is ambiguous, dependent on context, and requires nuance, let us investigate more closely about the means of work to realize the divinity of the soul and be free. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Artabhaga asks the Rishi Yagnavalkya about the doctrine of karma. Yagnavalkya tells him, "Give me your hand. We shall talk privately. This topic cannot be discussed in public." They left the crowd, spoke about action and praised work. Man becomes good through good deeds and evil through evil deeds. Thereafter, Artabhaga was silent. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, an incarnation of the preserver, Vishnu, says to Arjuna, "What is action? What is inaction? Even teachers are confused. Thus I shall explain to you, that you may know and be freed from suffering. You must understand action, wrong action, and also inaction. This doctrine is difficult to comprehend." In the Katha Upanishad, Nachiketa is cursed by his father and visits the Lord of Death, Yama, who is impressed by the boy's questioning of the nature of the self, or Atman, the impermanence of the world, and the path to spiritual realization. He says, even the gods in the ancient days had doubts because this subtle doctrine is difficult to comprehend. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the Rishi Yagnavalkya explains to King Janaka the indwelling self is Brahman. It is identified with the intellect, the emotions, the vital breath, the senses, the elements, desire and anger, virtue and corruption, with everything. As is widely known, it is identified with what is perceived, this, and what is conceptualized, that. As it works and acts, so it becomes. By doing good, it becomes good, and by doing evil, it becomes evil. It becomes righteous by righteousness and depraved by depravity. Some say the indwelling self is identified only with desire. As it desires, so it decides. As it decides, so it wills, and whatever it wills, that it reaps. Yagnavalkya is teaching Janaka about the nature of the self, which he identifies as Brahman, the ultimate reality. He explains that the indwelling self is not separate from the various aspects of human experience, the intellect or buddhi, the emotional life, the senses, the elements. Consciousness itself illumines the mind, the senses, and the objects of perception, like the sun is reflected in a jar of water. If the reflection of the sun in a jar of water wobbles, the sun itself does not wobble. Swami Vivekananda says, the theory of karma is that we suffer for our good or bad deeds, and the whole scope of philosophy is to reach the glory of man. Bad deeds put a bar to the manifestation of the nature of the Purusha. Good deeds take the obstacles off, and the glory of the Purusha becomes manifest. The Purusha itself is never changed. Whatever you do never destroys your own glory, your own nature, because the soul cannot be acted upon by anything. Only a veil is spread before it, hiding its perfection. Brahman is the absolute reality or ultimate truth, and it is both transcendent, beyond creation, and immanent, all pervading throughout creation. According to Vedanta, the infinite, undivided, unchanging Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, is the only reality. It is due to lack of discernment that the self is entangled with external objects and conditions and falsely identified with a limited body and its various mental states and moods. Swami Vivekananda says, according to the Advaita philosophy, there is only one thing real in the universe, which it calls Brahman. Everything else is unreal, manifested and manufactured out of Brahman by the power of Maya. To reach back to that Brahman is our goal. The Atman in bondage is called Jiva. Projected from Brahman, it passed through all sorts of vegetable and animal forms, and at last it is in man. And man is the nearest approach to Brahman. To go back to Brahman, from which we have been projected, is the great struggle of life. End quote. Advaita, or non-dualism, negates the world of appearances as impermanent and therefore unreal. Qualified monism, or Vishisht Advaita, accepts the plurality of forms and a diversity of attributes as conditionally real. It is similar to how waves do not exist without the ocean. The ocean is the waves and exists regardless of the tide. Atman, the soul, is to Brahman as a drop of water is to the ocean. Vishisht Advaita proposes that a personal God, the multiplicity of souls, and the apparent universe are all manifestations or emanations of Brahman, the impersonal reality described as infinite, undivided, unchanging Sat-Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. Advaita posits that the fundamental cause of a seeming duality between the Atman and Brahman is due to a lack of knowledge. It is a state of ignorance where the jiva, the soul in bondage, forgets its true nature and relationship with Brahman. This ignorance leads to a sense of separation and individuality. According to Dvaita, jivas are inherently divine and part of the cosmic order, but due to ajnana, lacking realization, they become confused and identify with their physical bodies and material existence. In Dvaita, the process of attaining liberation or moksha involves dispelling this ignorance or avidya through the acquisition of true knowledge, jnana, the realization of one's divine nature and recognition of the eternal relationship between the jiva and Brahman. Through this knowledge, the jiva overcomes its sense of separateness and returns to its original state of unity with Brahman. These various schools of Vedanta, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita, have three agreements. First, the existence of God, or Brahman. Second, the possibility of knowledge of God. And third, the cyclical creation and dissolution of the apparitional universe. In the cyclical life of the apparitional universe, Rita represents the cosmic order that governs creation, preservation, and dissolution through an endless loop of perpetual motion and the transmigration of souls through death and rebirth, samsara, until they attain liberation or moksha. Everything in the apparitional universe is interconnected and interdependent. Souls are bound by karma, the law of cause and effect, and also the inherent limitations and constraints of the material world, which is only a visible quarter of reality. The remaining 3/4 is beyond the empirical senses and associated with the ultimate truth, or paramarthika, which is the highest, unchanging, and eternal existence, consciousness, bliss that can be attained through spiritual practices which remove ignorance and confusion from our perception with right knowledge. In the Vedas, the personification of Rita is Varuna, the god of truth and justice. Rita is not a set of rules or guidelines for human behavior, but the principles of cosmic order. Dharma is the human ethical and moral code that aligns with this cosmic order. Dharma guides individuals in fulfilling their roles and responsibilities in a way that is harmonious with Rita. Dharma is a Sanskrit word which means law, duty, or virtue. It is etymologically related to the Latin firmus, which means strength, and is synonymous with the words which are precedents for religion, both religare, which means to bind together or tie back, and religere, which means to read again or think twice. Dharma has been related to the Greek word eusebia, which means reverence, right conduct, and spiritual maturity. The Mahabharata ends after the resilient and persevering Yudhishthira has lost his brothers after many trials and tribulations on a long journey. His only companion is a beloved dog, and they eventually reach the gates of heaven, where he meets Lord Indra, king of the celestial realm, who welcomes him, but refuses to allow the dog to proceed. Yudhishthira will not abandon the dog, expressing his loyalty and commitment to it. At this moment, a miraculous revelation occurs. The dog transforms into the deity, Dharma, the god of virtue and duty. Dharma commends Yudhishthira for his unwavering adherence to righteousness and for not forsaking his duty even in the face of heavenly pleasures. Yudhishthira is then allowed to enter heaven with Dharma, man's best friend. Dharma can refer to ethical requirements or principles that guide one's actions and behavior. It is the code of conduct or set of duties that individuals are expected to follow in their lives. Dharma also signifies moral responsibility. It pertains to the mandatory obligations, desirable actions, and various responsibilities that individuals have toward themselves, their families, society, and the cosmos. Samanya dharma are the duties and standards that are common to all individuals, regardless of their specific roles or situation. Visesha dharma refers to duties and responsibilities that are special or specific to an individual's unique role, place in society, occupation, or circumstances. Svadharma is an individual's personal and unique path based on their inherent tendencies and intrinsic inclinations, their swabhava. Swami Vivekananda said, human society is a graded organization. The different individual characters and classes of men and women are natural variations in creation. We find that there are varied ideas of duty, differing according to different states of life, different historical periods, and different nations. The term duty, like every other universal abstract term, is impossible to clearly define. We can only get an idea of it by knowing its practical operations and results. Our duty is to encourage everyone in his struggle to live up to his own highest ideal and strive at the same time to make the ideal as near as possible to the truth. Every man should take up his own ideal and endeavor to accomplish it. That is a surer way of progress than taking up other men's ideals which he can never hope to accomplish. All the men and women in any society are not of the same mind, capacity, or of the same power to do things. They must have different ideals, and we have no right to sneer at any ideal. Let everyone do the best he can for realizing his own ideal, nor is it right that I should be judged by your standard or you by mine. We should always try to see the duty of others through their own eyes. By doing well the duty which is nearest to us, the duty which is in our hands now, we make ourselves stronger. And improving our strength in this manner step by step, we may even reach a state in which it shall be our privilege to do the most coveted and honored duties in life and in society. Each is great in his own place, but the duty of the one is not the duty of another. End quote. In the social hierarchy, the Brahmanas perform religious rituals, ceremonies, and offer prayers. They are responsible for transmitting knowledge by educating the society with scriptures and philosophy that offer moral and ethical standards. The Kshatriya are responsible for protection and defense of the society and just governance. The Vaishya engage in agriculture, trade, and contribute to the social welfare. The Sudras work in service-oriented roles as workers and skilled labor. In the Vedic tradition, there are 4 stages of life. Brahmacharya is the student stage, typically associated with young people who are engaged in learning, education, and the study of scriptures under the guidance of a guru. The primary focus during this stage is acquiring knowledge, developing self-discipline, and preparing for the responsibilities of adulthood. Celibacy and a simple lifestyle are often emphasized during this phase. The Grihastha stage is the householder phase, where individuals marry, establish a family, and engage in the responsibilities of daily life as a gentleman or lady in society. During this stage, individuals are expected to fulfill their duties as spouses, parents, and community members. This is the stage where one seeks economic security and prosperity and contributes to the social welfare. The Vanaprastha stage is retirement after children are grown and settled in their careers. These individuals gradually withdraw from worldly responsibilities and start to focus more on spiritual study. In the sannyasa phase, individuals renounce all worldly attachments and pursuits to fully devote themselves to spiritual practice and self-realization. Those in the sannyasa stage often lead an ascetic life, and usually they do not own any personal possessions. The primary objective is to seek liberation, moksha, and transcend the cycle of death and rebirth, samsara. The purushartha, or aims of human existence, are 4 potentials to fulfill in life. Following one's dharma means living a life in accordance with one's obligations and responsibilities, whether in family, society, or career. It emphasizes moral and ethical conduct, social harmony, and the fulfillment of one's duties. Artha is prosperity, wealth, and material well-being. It includes the pursuit of financial security, success, and the means necessary to support one's family and fulfill one's duties. The pursuit of artha is seen as a legitimate and necessary aspect of life, provided it is done with ethical and lawful means. Kama represents pleasure and enjoyment. It is the pursuit of sensual and emotional happiness, including love, relationships, and aesthetic experiences. This is also a necessary aspect of life, requiring moderation and ethical observances. Moksha signifies liberation or spiritual enlightenment. It is the ultimate goal of human life and represents freedom from the cycle of death and rebirth, samsara. Attaining moksha means freedom from suffering and realizing one's true nature, union with the divine or ultimate reality, Brahman. It is pursued through spiritual practices, self-realization, and deep understanding of the nature of the self and the cosmos. Activity, according to Orthodox tradition, is of 2 kinds, pravriti and nivriti. The first kind of activity leads to progress, and the second to perfection. Pravriti represents the path of worldly engagement and action. It is associated with material pursuits, prosperity, and worldly progress. It involves being actively involved in the external world, fulfilling one's responsibilities, desires, and duties. Pravriti encourages individuals to engage in the world, take part in social and familial roles, and work for the betterment of society. This path acknowledges the importance of fulfilling worldly desires and responsibilities, but also emphasizes doing so with righteousness and ethics. Nivriti represents the path of spiritual withdrawal, and contemplation. It is associated with renunciation, liberation, and the pursuit of ultimate spiritual truth. It involves turning inward, detaching from worldly concerns, and seeking spiritual knowledge and self-realization. Nivriti requires individuals to transcend material desires and false identity in seeking peace, wisdom, and liberation. This path is often followed by ascetics, monks, and spiritual seekers who renounce worldly pleasures in pursuit of higher spiritual goals. It is essential for individuals on the path of Nivriti to develop self-discipline and focus on spiritual practices, or sadhana, which leads to kaivalya, unity, the ultimate state of oneness. It is the goal of liberation and the realization of one's true nature in unity with Brahman. Not all of the consequences of our actions are immediately apparent. Intentions and decisions are the seeds for future experiences and potential results. Our accumulated impressions from past life and lives influence our present inclinations and current circumstances. Our karma is impacted by unintended and unwanted causes, and also affected by the behavior of others. Karma is not limited to physical action, but includes thoughts and words. Spiritual practices such as charitable gifts, acts of worship, and prayer purify the mind, which is habitually trained by various impressions, which become tendencies, which can lead to merit and growth. Swami Vivekananda says, if you take the character of any man, it really is but the aggregate of tendencies, the sum total of the bent of his mind. What we are every moment is determined by the sum total of these impressions on the mind. This is really what is meant by character. Each man's character is determined by the sum total of these impressions. It is also possible, by violating taboos and indulging in forbidden or prohibited action, to pollute oneself and drift into trouble. The main afflictions are avidya, ignorance, misconception, and misperception, a fundamental source of suffering. Ashmita, false identity, and vanity. Raga, which is immoderate desire, attraction to the pleasant, whereas dvesha is aversions and hatreds. Finally, the innate survival instinct and primal attachment that creates anxiety is the fear of death and clinging to the world. These miserable attitudes lead to grief, crime, and evil. Swami Vivekananda says, plunge into the world, and then after a time, when you have suffered and enjoyed all that is in it, will renunciation come. Then will calmness come. So fulfill your desire for power and everything else, and after you have fulfilled the desire, will come the time when you will know that they are all very little things. Sri Ramakrishna said, what is karma yoga? Its aim is to fix one's mind on God by means of work. Attainment of God alone is the aim of karma yoga. It is not possible for you to give up work altogether. Your very nature will lead you to it, whether you like it or not. Therefore, the scriptures ask you to work in a detached spirit, that is to say, not to crave the work's results. To work in such a spirit of detachment is known as karma yoga. It is not possible to give up work altogether. Even to think or meditate is a kind of work. The aim of life is the attainment of God Work is only a preliminary step. It can never be the end. Even unselfish work is only a means. It is not the end. Therefore, I say again that work is only the first step. It can never be the goal of life. Swami Vivekananda said, "What is karma yoga? The knowledge of the secret of work." Enjoyment should not be the goal. The very reason of nature's existence is for the education of the soul. It has no other meaning. It is there because the soul must have knowledge, and through knowledge, free itself. According to our philosophers, freedom is the goal. The ignorant man is satisfied if he can get freedom within a certain limit, if he can get rid of the bondage of hunger or of being thirsty. But the sage feels that there is a stronger bondage which has to be thrown off. To acquire freedom, we have to get beyond the limitations of this universe. It cannot be found here. The external world is simply the suggestion, the occasion, which sets you to study your own mind. But the object of your study is always your own mind. The goal of mankind is knowledge. Perfect knowledge reveals the knower, which is above all activities, and the reality which underlies all phenomenal objects. Understanding this, we live in the world and labor without being enslaved like ordinary workers. To the outside, we may appear to be like other workers, but our mental attitude is different. And though we may outwardly resemble them, we are not, as they are, affected by the tasks which we perform with our body, mind, and senses, nor are we prompted by selfish motives. Karma yoga, therefore, is a system of ethics and religion intended to attain freedom through unselfishness and by good works. The main effect of work done for others is to purify ourselves. Never vaunt of your gifts to the poor or expect their gratitude, but rather be grateful to them for giving you the occasion of practicing charity to them. It is a privilege to help others. Be thankful that you are allowed to exercise your power of benevolence and mercy in the world, and thus become pure and perfect. No permanent or everlasting good can be done to the world. When you have trained your mind and your nerves to realize this idea of the world's non-dependence on you or on anybody, there will then be no reaction in the form of pain resulting from work. Work incessantly, but see something behind the world. Even good deeds can find a man in great bondage. Therefore, be not bound by good deeds or by desire for name and fame. Those who know this secret pass beyond this round of birth and death and become immortal. Samsara is the karmic cycle of creation, preservation, and destruction of the apparent universe, and the transmigration of the soul through death and rebirth. Brahman and Atman are one. Atman bound is Jiva. Jiva has evolved to human birth through 8,400,000 species, including 2 million plants, 900,000 aquatic animals, 100,000 insects, 100,000 birds, 300,000 cows, and 400,000 monkeys. The Chandogya Upanishad is the earliest text of esoteric knowledge of the transmigration of the soul, which features a symbolic ceremony of 5 steps to rebirth. The wheel of samsara turns by the momentum of past actions, and for those who die from the winter to summer or during the waxing moon, they depart along the northern solar path of the gods to eternal life and immortality. This includes householders who aspired to spiritual realization, forest dwellers, monks, ascetics, and celibates. For those who die from summer to winter or during the waning moon, they follow the southern lunar path of the ancestors to be reborn as rice, barley, herbs, trees, seeds, and beans. This includes philanthropists, humanitarians, ritualists, and workers. There is a commentary by Swami Nikhilananda who writes, "Those who go to the lunar world retain consciousness during their ascent, and as long as they dwell there, their experience of the journey and of the lunar world is like a dream. But when they fall from that world, they become totally unconscious. They return again the same way they came. They first reach the Akasha, and from the Akasha, the air. Having become air, they become smoke. Having become smoke, they become mist. Having become mist, they become cloud. Having become cloud, they fall as rainwater. There is no certainty where souls will go when they fall with the rainwater." Quoting Shankaracharya, "They may be located in thousands of places, such as a mountainside, unnavigable rivers, oceans, forests, or deserts. It is extremely difficult to find an exit from these places. Being carried away by water currents from the mountains, they reach rivers and thence the sea, where they are swallowed by alligators or other sea creatures, and so on. Their chance of being eaten by persons capable of procreation is rare," end quote. It is also difficult to find an exit from man. Through the process of the harvest, threshing, grinding, cooking, eating, digesting, becoming semen, and procreation, through all these states, the soul continues to exist, bereft of consciousness in a subtle, watery form, a punishment. End quote. Those with a favorable rebirth include the brahmanas, warriors, and merchants. An unfavorable rebirth includes life as a dog, pig, or outcast. For those who did no meditation or rituals, they are insignificant creatures like flies and mosquitoes. Some are condemned to live and die, total annihilation, thieves, alcoholics, cuckolders, murderers, and their associates. There are exemptions and a revelation of the supreme reality for initiates, for their good conduct and knowledge of doctrine. In the Katha Upanishad, Nachiketa is cursed by his father and goes to hell. There, he learns a subtle doctrine, difficult to comprehend for the teachers and for the gods who have doubts about the supreme reality, the nature of the self, and the law of rebirth. Nachiketa, whose name means no decay and never defeated, learns that a mortal ripens like corn, and like corn is born again. It is written in the Mundaka Upanishad, "Whatever world a man of pure intelligence envisions, and whatever he craves, that world he attains, and those objects he gains. He who thinks of objects and covets them is born again here and there amidst those desires, but the man without desire is content and perfect now. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, both renunciation and action lead to ultimate perfection. Between them, however, disinterested deeds are superior to the abandonment of work. The disciplined man without attachment to the fruit of action gains true peace. The errant man of desire expects results and suffers. The man who fulfills his duty without seeking reward is free and perfect, not the man who refuses to act and lacks vitality. When action is performed because it ought to be done, without expectation for results, such renunciation is considered pure. Yeah, embodied creatures cannot abandon action completely, so he who does not seek the fruits of action is regarded as a renunciate. Action in accord with duty, done without attachment, performed without attraction or aversion, with no wish for the results of work, is righteous. The brave master perseveres without attachment and vanity, unchanged in victory or defeat, and he is perfect. Man becomes perfect when devoted to his own duty. Do your duty, because action is better than inaction. Therefore, without attachment, do the work that must be done. By acting without expectation, a man reaches perfection. It is written in the Ashtavakra Gita, the Song of the Perfect Master, untroubled by action or inaction, the joyful master does whatever needs to be done. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace.